Hey everyone, I'm doing a live stream a little late tonight because I am going through my inbox and cleaning it out. And I came across this question from Allie a couple days ago on the blog. And it is a really great question. And I'm so excited that somebody wants to know, like, what are the ratios of minerals that you should see in the nutritional analysis of a goat mineral? And I think that is such an awesome question because I'm always working to educate you guys on what to look for on a label. And Allie had noticed that I had said that you want to see 4 times as much zinc as copper. And so she was wondering about other ratios that would be important. And the reason I don't really talk about other ratios more is because they're not really a problem. So calcium to phosphorus needs to be 2 to 1, between 2 to 1 and 1 to 1. And that, I think I've seen that on just about every mineral ever. It virtually every mineral I've seen, the calcium is 2 to 1. So I don't even usually talk about that very often because it's not usually a problem. You do occasionally find some minerals where the calcium and the phosphorus are the same. And that is where they are either assuming, number one, that the animal doesn't need that much calcium. So it's for bucks because they don't need that much calcium, or wethers, or it is for does that are milking that are consuming a diet of 100% alfalfa, because alfalfa is very high in calcium. So if they're eating a diet that's 100% alfalfa, then they don't need the extra calcium in the minerals. So then those, like Sweetlix Magnum milk, is 1 to 1 calcium to phosphorus because they're assuming that your does are consuming 100% alfalfa diet. Very few people feed 100% alfalfa, and so that for most people it's not worth it. And we do actually feed 100% alfalfa all winter to our does that are pregnant and in milk. And we still feed the Sweetlix meat maker, which is 2 to 1 calcium to phosphorus. So other than that, which most mineral companies do get the calcium and phosphorus right, they do get those in a good ratio. The one that you do see a lot of companies not get right is zinc to copper, which is why I talk about that one. Copper is a zinc antagonist. And so anybody who says that, giving your goats more copper can't hurt is not correct. Like, obviously it can hurt. First of all, too much is toxic. But the other thing is that copper is a zinc antagonist. So too much copper can cause a zinc deficiency. But if your zinc in your mineral is at least 4 times as much copper, then you're good. So you want to see, so like say, for example, if you've got 2000 ppm copper, you want to see at least 8000 ppm zinc. This is one of the reasons I love Sweetlix, is because they actually have 7 times as much zinc as copper. So like in our case, where we need to give our goats extra copper because the sulfur in our well water makes the copper less absorbable, so we need to give our goats more copper. There's plenty of zinc in the Sweetlix to make up for that, so we don't have to worry about that. The only other thing that I really did not worry about this too much until recently. Within the last year, I've had a few people send me a nutritional analysis and say, what do you think of this mineral? And it has sulfur in it. And this is really crazy because there's labels always say like, oh, sulfur is really important for this, and this, which is like, well, yeah, it is. But the thing is, goats don't become deficient in sulfur. And the thing is, remember I just said my goats have a problem with copper deficiency because of the sulfur in our well water. Well, you don't need to be giving your goats extra sulfur. So I get really scared when I see a goat mineral that has sulfur in it. And what's interesting about this, normally, I'm looking for a goat mineral that's got like between 1800 and 2300, 2400 ppm of copper. So the crazy thing about this is that these people who are putting sulfur in there are usually also having insanely high levels of copper, like 5000 ppm copper, which is just nuts. So I kind of feel like they're playing Russian roulette, because it's like they know they're putting too much copper in there. And so they're putting sulfur in there as an antagonist to keep the goats from dying from copper toxicity. And I don't know why they do that. Maybe because they want to tell everybody like how important sulfur is and like, you should buy our mineral because most minerals don't have sulfur in them and sulfur is really important. And it's like, yeah, sulfur is important, but there's plenty of sulfur in a goat's natural diet. So that's why you don't normally see it on the nutritional analysis of a mineral. Um, and the thing is, when people have sent me these, I've looked very hard to try to find like what is the ratio, and I can't find it, and I think it's because the people who wrote the nutrition information for goats, I mean, they say goats don't normally become deficient in sulfur, the end. We don't need to put sulfur in their mixed minerals, so we don't need to figure out like what the ratio is of copper to sulfur to make that happen. So basically it's like when there's sulfur in a mineral that's like crazy high, and I think I've even seen as high as 7,000, 8,000 ppm copper, which honestly, that would kill a goat if there was no sulfur in that mineral, because that's just off the charts insanely high. And so that's why they put the sulfur in there, is to keep the copper from killing the goats, which, like I said earlier, it's just like playing Russian roulette. So I don't recommend anything that's got sulfur in it because I can't find any information on what the proper ratio is if you are adding that into a mineral, probably because they don't need to have it in there. So it just gets into this convoluted, weird situation where it's like, we're going to cause a problem and then we're going to fix the problem. And it doesn't make any sense. So that's basically the reason you don't hear me talking about other ratios, is because they're not really important. They're not a challenge in terms of like keeping them balanced. And really the main things you hear me talk about in terms of deficiency is zinc, copper, and selenium. And that's because those are the most common deficiencies in goats. Other than that, don't really have much of a problem with deficiencies because they get what they need from their diet. So if you've got any questions about this, be sure to post in the comment section below. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Bye for now.